Hey guys, Voodoo here to tell you about the latest from Candlemass, Sweet Evil Sun, out November 18th on Napalm Records. The album has 10 tracks, 54 minutes in length, and this is the band's 13th full-length studio record. They are a iconic Swedish doom metal band. From a design point of view, at first glance, the album feels very compact, very linear, staying very close to home on each and every single song. But the more you listen to the record, the more you realize that there are nuances and there are new elements introduced almost with every single track that allow the path to become a lot more broadened as you progress down the line. So there is a lot more diversity at the end of the record compared to the diversity that you don't find at the beginning of the album. So it's a record that grows, that becomes wider, that breathes a lot better with every passing song. It also has an interesting outro, an outro that gives the album a sense of a live studio recording. It's interesting, but I'm not sure it adds anything of significance to the overall experience. If it wasn't there, the record would still be what it is. With it there, it adds this new nuance at the end of the album, almost like an Easter egg that you're not expecting to find, almost like a M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end that you didn't see it coming. But the album is what it is up to that point. That song, it doesn't change the dynamic of the record, and it doesn't change the texture that the album offers. I enjoyed this design. I really enjoyed this approach because it allowed me to grow with the record and allowed me to better engage the album and understand exactly what this album could offer, not just on the individual song basis, but from an overall perspective. So a very interesting structure with a very interesting outro at the end. As far as the sound is concerned, the opening riff of this album lets you know immediately that you're listening to Candlemass. I mean, it's the DNA of the band is alive and well in this record, and you're going to get it on every single song. It's that trademark sound, that trademark guitar execution that becomes synonymous with Candlemass. You're going to find it on every single song. The album has grit in that sound, in that presence, in that DNA. It has fuzziness. I love the guitar sound. It's definitely one of the cornerstones of this record. The other one is the vocals. These two elements are the foundation of the entire album. And when it comes to the sound experience, the record allows you to always gravitate towards those guitars. They're always in the forefront, driving the songs, driving the atmosphere of the songs, creating a sense of connection, creating a sense of balance between tracks, never really deviating too much, but offering you slightly different perspectives with the exact same ingredients. Where things start to become a little bit better defined in terms of the individuality of the tracks are the nuances that they sprinkled in around that guitar sound. And to me, the two main ones comes from the bass and some of the keyboards that they used. As far as the bass is concerned, the bass work on this record is phenomenal. It doesn't overshine anything else. It's not there to take center stage, but the underlining current that creates on every single song, and on some tracks popping in a little bit more, becoming slightly more noticeable, creates an incredible atmosphere that surrounds the tracks in a perfect way. In order to create darkness, in order to create texture, in order to give life, to let these songs breathe and allow the guitars to be a little bit more linear from start to finish of the songs, the bass line that creates the ripple effect underneath that calm surface becomes a dividing factor, becomes a motor, if you will, of how much the song can brew, of how much you can take out of it, outside of the sound, and into the atmosphere and into the mood of the track and of the lyrical content. The same could be said about the keyboards, about the synths, how they work on some of these songs in terms of creating those little nuances that are just creating bubbles underneath the surface. Is never the key factor on this album to use these elements to upset what the guitars are doing. The guitars are there to be the focus of your attention from start to finish. These elements are infused in there in order to give specific nuances to specific songs so that the tracks have a sense of individuality but still staying connected from beginning all the way to the end. And the bass and the keyboards do this perfectly, creating atmosphere once again, adding mood, adding layers, adding texture, adding life to songs that sometimes feel very depleted of. The other main cornerstone of this album, as I mentioned earlier, is the vocals. Johan is phenomenal on this record. Sometimes you're listening to a song on this album and the track feels like it's not going anywhere. It feels like you're just like sinking in quicksand. The question is, how quick are you sinking? But you're not really creating movement with the sound around you, because the sound is staying very stable, very flat lined from start to finish. But then he infuses life. He adds warmth to the songs. He starts to pull the strings. He's the puppet master. And he's able to use his tone, his vocals, his range to really create ebbs and flows in a song that otherwise musically doesn't have any. And this adds movement to the tracks. This gives a little bit more movement to songs that otherwise would just not go anywhere. So the impact that he has on this record is undeniable. It's an impact that's defined on each and every single song. It's easy to see, it's easy to feel, it's easy to hold on to. The musical side of the album is very important, and the guitar impact in terms of creating that connection, that streamlined connection from beginning to end, is definitely a key factor of what Candlemass is all about. But his performance on top of that allows the songs to break away from one another. It allows you to better understand the message, the intent that the track had, the mood, the atmosphere, and what the songs could offer you deeper, the deeper you get into them. So his performance on this album is outstanding. One of his best performances of recent history, and not to say that the previous albums weren't any good, but this album I just felt more of an organic approach from him, a more natural, a more uninhibited approach that allows the vocals to feel a lot more connected, not just with the lyrical content, but with the song designs themselves. Overall, they are the Black Sabbath of their generation. Somebody once said this, and I think this album completely solidifies that statement. And that's all I have to say about this record. It's a phenomenal sounding album, an album that grows on you with every time that you're listening to, and there has those two key fundamental components of a very linear forward motion as far as the guitar sound and execution is concerned, with a few ripples here and there, but then having an outstanding vocal performance that enhances the beauty around it. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Black Butterfly. The crushing guitar sounding riff of this song is phenomenal. It lays the groundwork for the entire track. The vocals give energy to the experience. The choirs and the chorus add volume, and that is such a key component to how this song comes across, because it's a song that allows you to connect with the chorus. It has a very hooky chorus, not just from what it's being said, but how it's being delivered. That choir adding incredible volume creates an incredible atmosphere, becomes the focal point of the entire track. A track that's a lot more methodic in the verses, and then a lot more melodic and atmospheric in the chorus. The vocals are the fuel to the fire from beginning to end, and you reach the climax once you reach that chorus. The bridge and solo add an explosive nature to the track guitar-wise that it didn't have up until that point, and it doesn't have it from that point on, because the guitars stay very grounded, very centric from start to finish. The exception is the solos. And the solo on this record is a little bit of a microcosm of what the solos are throughout the entire album. When you look at the guitar work, you're going to see that sort of linear approach from opening riff to closing riff, and then you're going to use the solos. They're going to use the solos to create a little bit more light, to create a little bit more energy, to be a little bit more explosive, and break away from that fuzziness, from that thickness that the rest of the guitar sound has. You're going to find that in Black Butterfly, but you're going to find that on every single song of this record. Next we have When Death Sighs. The guitars, the way they broke through in the vocal space, it's really important. It allows you the vocals to define the track a lot better and not relying on the guitars to do so for them. This creates layers, and it creates an interesting dynamic between the overall vocals and the overall guitar sound. One lays the groundwork for the other. They really depend on each other, but there's one that propels and pushes the other one forward. The vocals are the spirits coming to life in a haunted mansion, with the haunted mansion being the guitar sound that the track has. This is how this song comes across. To add fuel to the fire, you have Jenny Ann Smith of Avatarium doing a duet in the chorus, and her voice, while very subtle, it adds a different level. It pushes this track into a different place. It becomes a lot warmer in terms of the delivery, but it also becomes a lot more darker in terms of the atmosphere that it creates. this chorus is absolutely sublime. One doesn't overstep the other. The two are intertwining to creating one single experience using two very different vocalists. And that is the way this song works. A track that uses its vocalists as the leading characters on a haunted movie in a haunted mansion. This track has all of those elements coming together. Last but not least, Devil Voodoo. This is an interesting track because it starts off with acoustic guitars. The acoustic guitars then come back again in the middle of the song. And those acoustic guitars, with the vocal performance attached to it, it really feels like a Johnny Cash style song. It doesn't stay that way throughout the entire track. This song actually has a lot more movement. The guitars pick up a lot more intensity. They have a lot more drive. And it has a very explosive solo that breaks away from the entire dynamic of the track, but enhances that movement, that tempo that the track has, that it's very different from the tempos of the songs before and the songs after. But those two moments, those two acoustic guitar moments, become the defining factors of what this song is all about and the momentum that the track then offers around it. The vocals define it, the guitars infuse it. That is the soul that this song offers. This is it, Candlemass, Sweet Evil Sun, out November 18th on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.